all the moments in our life are not by accident. They're not mundane. So then we wait to have the big spiritual experiences. So then we wait to have the connection, but no, they're actually doorways and gateways in any given moment to that experience of connection, of peace, of power, and of presence.
Welcome to Intuition Unlocked, the podcast empowering empathic women who feel misunderstood, overwhelmed, or disconnected from their intuition, begin to trust their sensitivities, find inner clarity, and show up with embodied, unstoppable confidence in their daily lives. I am your host, Olivia Ashley, an empath and intuitive, and I am so happy you're here. Hello, dear friends. I'm so happy you're here with me today because this conversation is such a powerful one. I'm joined by Kilkenny Tremblay, a true modern mystic, psychic medium, Celtic priestess, and the creator and host of the Modern Mystic podcast, which ranks in the top 2% of all podcasts worldwide. Kilkenny has spent her life studying under master teachers of tantric yoga, meditation, and mystical arts, and she brings a rare depth of insight into how we can awaken our intuitive gifts and integrate ancient wisdom into our modern lives. In this episode, you'll hear us talk about what it truly means to be a modern mystic and how magic and manifesting are deeply connected. You'll also learn how spiritual awakening can unfold gently, especially for women navigating stress or burnout, and how everyday moments can become portals to the mystical, including ways to connect with elemental beings and ancestral energies. And these things are just the tip of the iceberg of our conversation. There is so much richness in this one, so let's get into it. Welcome to Intuition Unlocked, Kilkenny. I am so honored to have you here. To start, I would love if you could share a little bit about your journey and how your connection to spirit and intuition began.
So lovely to be here with you, and I can't wait for this riveting conversation. My journey with intuition has really started from a young child. When I was about 5 years old, I was in a family that at that time didn't believe, quote unquote, in anything. And there wasn't talk of anything spiritual or anything religious or anything about these realms. And I remember having an experience of driving home in a car in the rain and like tracing the raindrops, on the window and literally just saying to the universe, like, I know my family doesn't believe there's anything out there, but I feel you. Like it was magic. I remember feeling like there was connection, there were patterns, there was some kind of unseen force. And I don't know even where that thought came from because, again, my childhood at that point in time, there wasn't conversation about that at all. There wasn't exposure to those realms. After I had that experience, I'm not sure exactly when that was, 4 or something like 5, I suspect. Very soon after, she started taking me to some yoga classes and she got really into spirituality and started taking me to meditation classes pretty soon after I had that experience, ironically. And then when I was 10, she started taking me to the Catskill Mountains. And that was like my full on immersion where I met all sorts of mystics from all different traditions. So, mystic Kabbalah tradition, Indian monks of the Saraswati, very strict traditional yoga tradition, tantric tradition, astrologers, and basically just completely was immersed with all these mystics and healers. And every summer I would go and hang out with these beings because it was back then you could do that and you didn't need like permission slips and all this. It was sort of more loose. And yeah, it was kind of like camp, except I would just go hang out with people. And yeah, I'd spend a month or two hanging out with all these people and got all sorts of training and had incredible mystical experiences. And since then, it's been my full-on journey to really be in conversation as much as possible with my own intuition. So I love the name of your podcast.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. I have a very similar story of just, driving in the car, looking at the trees, going like, whoa, there's something more. And like, do my siblings feel this way? Does anyone connect in this way? So I love that you can share that story and just relate. And also, what a cool childhood. Wow. I can't even imagine. Does that happen today anymore? But that's amazing. And I love the work you're doing. You have so much knowledge and wisdom that you are sharing, especially through and around modern mysticism mysticism. So I think that's where I'd like to begin with what does it mean to be a modern mystic? And how has that identity taken shape through your life and work?
Amazing question. So to me, being a modern mystic is really remembering that we are the bridge, we are the conduit, so to speak, between the unseen and the seen realms. And there's all of this information and all this peace available to us at any given moment. But as humans, we forget, particularly in this modern era. Our nervous systems, most of us are so shot. The outer world has accelerated at an all-time record speed. I don't have to tell anyone who's listening about the intensity of this world at this moment. And so to be a mystic thousands of years ago, many traditions, it meant to pull away, to go to a cave, to meditate, like for long periods of time. And yet, my main squeeze tradition, Tantra, which is a yogic tradition and lineage, is all about how do we bring mysticism into the world as a householder? So, how do I have a partner, a lover, a child, a parent? And how do I make as many moments as possible? And really, the goal of, my mind self-realization is to realize all the moments as connected as possible to that truth that there's more than meets the eye, that there's mystical in the mundane, that there's magic in the present moment. And the more we use the technologies of mindfulness, of meditation, there's such a myriad we can go into and share. That's how we access and become the literal bridge between what seems mundane and what seems mystical, and the integration of those two realms, of the integration of bringing mindfulness, the integration of bringing connection and remembrance to who we are, that we are really here as a soul first, and then all the moments in our life are not by accident. They're not mundane. So then we wait to have the big spiritual experiences. So then we wait to have the connection, but no, they're actually doorways and gateways in any given moment to that experience of connection, of peace, of power, and of presence.
I love that. Yes, exactly. And I think that's so important. I talk a lot about the magic in the mundane because it's so true. And I think it's really important to start to remember. So I would love to talk about that. How can everyday moments become portals to the mystical? And really, what does that look like, that magic in the mundane in life and or through the teachings that you've learned? How do we integrate that into our life and our days?
Profound question. So I think it's really about committing to habits and a lifestyle that utilizes tools that connects our limited selves to the unlimited. So it's about that consistency of remembrance. But as humans, we forget all the time, right? So we have technologies and everyone's arsenal can look different, and that's what's amazing about this modern day and age. Because of the internet, because of our global macro connection now, we can learn so many more tools than we could have even 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago, let alone 100 years ago, right? It used to be that there was only, if you were lucky in one lifetime, maybe met a teacher or learn some practices. Now we have an access to so many. And so we can really carpe diem, seize our life, and curate what set of unique practices and habits and lifestyle choices lead me, Kilkenny, or fill in the blank your name, listener, or for Olivia, right, to have this connection. So for everyone, it looks different. And I'm a psychic medium, and that's my work. And so much of what I do in my readings is access people's guides, teams, and help them get clear directives and help act as a mirror to even reflect unconsciously, because everyone really unconsciously and deep down within their soul knows what would be helpful for them. But often it's hard to see, hear, and understand what would help them feel more connected. So, right, we get mentors and readers and outer beings to guide us and steward us. So I act as a mirror and a coach, so to speak. So when people leave my readings, they're like, oh, these are the things that my team, my guides, my ancestors, whoever comes through, are beckoning me to do to take that connection to the next level so I can live a life with more meaning, with more magic, with more mindfulness. That becomes the journey. And in a world where there is so much information, that's the blessing and the boon. But then it's also the challenge. There's an asset and a pearl to every situation. And people can feel so overwhelmed spiritually. People can feel so saturated. I'll have people come to me and they're like, oh, do I do my Tibetan Buddhist practice, or do I do my, Irish practice? Because there are so many tools. So learning to get clear on which things take you there in the most efficient way, in the fastest way, because most of us don't have 20 hours to do practices, right? So what's your unique script spiritually to help you feel connected and to help you access more magic and meaning in your life?
You're so right. Yes, it's going to look different for each of us, but that intuition, that connection, and then that's listening and taking action and bringing that into your day today really takes it to the next level. And I think that's how you can start to manifest and really change the aspects of your life or bring forward what you are wanting to see. And so you really speak a lot and so beautifully about weaving this ancient wisdom into this modern life. And I'm curious how you see the relationship between manifesting and magic, and where does that intersect?
It's a really fascinating topic. I think that there's not a one size fits all answer. I mean, even I think it's ostentatious to pretend like anyone has the answer, right? Because if anyone had the exact answer, like we'd all know the answer, So it's an exploration. However, I do feel from my own experience, and that's all we can each go off of, our own experience, that manifestation is very possible to pretty much anything. However, I also believe that if one is really seeking to serve humanity, if one is really seeking to live what I like to say from the widest, deepest, highest, most expansive place, which in turn serves oneself, the people one loves, and humanity, then we have to think about our ego with manifesting. And that can be a fine line. Like I've met people who have incredible kinds of, in the yoga tradition, it's called siddhis. Like, we would think of them as magical powers, siddhas, siddhis. And even, with the psychic medium reading, people's loved ones who've passed will come to me, people's parents or nephews or kids, and that's considered a siddhi. So we all have the capacity to connect to our intuition and to become a satellite to receive messages from other realms and other entities. When it comes to manifesting, what's very popular right now is the car, the house, the this, the that, right? Like creating your own reality with your thoughts. And I'm a big fan of that. But I do think it's more complex. And in my experience, and I have an episode on my podcast, it's called Modern Mystic Podcast, that's talked about manifesting and the art and magic of manifesting. And I really have experienced that when I come from a place of manifesting something that will benefit others and or the world in addition to myself, that is when, from that altruism, the universe delivers it to me the most quickly, the most sweetly, and looking back, the things I value in the past that I've manifested the most. So I do believe we're co-creating with the universe. I do believe on top of that, and I think that's spiritual maturation, we do have karma to burn. We do have another way to say that for those listeners who aren't familiar with karma. It's like we have lessons we're here to learn, right? And so we can't just be like, okay, I'm going to manifest, say, the car. I want this car, And if there's a lesson that you need to learn about like trust, because a lot of times in readings, I find people will come to me with all sorts of questions and all sorts of advice they're seeking. But most people have like 1 to 3 themes that are reoccurring over their life that come up. So even if it's like, sometimes it shows up in relationship, and in this example, trust, or sometimes it shows up in their job. But if you really think about and talk about it with them, it's still trust. Their issue is trust, and it comes up in different ways. It rears its head in different ways, but they're still here as a soul in their karmic contract that they wanted to learn before this lifetime. They agreed to learn, frankly, is trust. Well, if that person goes and really tries to manifest like X, Y, and Z car, okay, it could take a little longer because their life lesson, the main life lesson, is trust. So then the universe is testing them, even though like they're a co-creator and they're like, okay, I want this car, the universe might test them and delay it a little bit because they're testing the muscle of trust. Or someone else, it could be they come to me and their main life lesson is security. I see that a lot, feeling secure. And so then the car comes more quickly because they're learning they are secure. So it's very fascinating manifesting. And again, I think it's amazing that it has become more or less mainstream because people understand the power of their mind and the power of thought. The goal, however, in my mind, is always who does it serve and how does it benefit people? So when I'm personally manifesting, to me, it's like I've manifested enough that I don't need to prove it to myself anymore. Like I've manifested the exact car I want, the exact house I want, like all sorts of things that, can sound like a flex, but we know these superficial things we can't take with us, and I see that in readings all the time. The only thing we take with us is love and the connections we've had with people. So when I manifest now, the things that are most meaningful to me are the things like the house that I manifested so I could house my older father and nurture him along with me, right? So now when I manifest, I'm very conscious. I ask myself, would I benefit? Well, yeah, the point of this world is to support yourself. Totally. However, I also think who else does that impact? And I really do believe that that is the magic in manifesting. I really do believe that when we pass someday and when we're older, those are the things that we'll be the most proud of. And those will be the things that align our life because there's an altruistic overtone to what we want to manifest in a way that attracts even more good things, as opposed to just manifesting something that's, quote unquote self-serving, but more or less just for ourselves.
Yeah, that was really beautiful, really refreshing to hear that because when we talk about manifesting, it's often very physical things. Yes, I want to be able to attract this and get this and then get that. And I think there's, though, such a more of a holistic take of there's a lot of internal work and manifestation that can apply in that realm. How do I feel more grounded? How do I feel well? How do I feel more connected? Like there's so many things we can manifest and connect. And then on top of how do I manifest but serve? How do I support our community? And so it's refreshing to hear you speak to that level. And I'm curious if you have any practices or really grounded examples of how do we start to think that way? How do we start to really show up in our day and have the lens of, yes, I do need a house, I do need this, and I would like to have this really aligned job so I can just show up and be me, but kind of get to that deeper level you're speaking of.
Well, I think that it comes to the energy underneath the manifestation. So some of your listeners might have heard this idea, but in my experience in working with people, in my readings and helping people manifest and understand this art of manifestation, when you think about what you want to manifest, quote unquote, okay, what is the main feeling underneath that manifestation? A lot of people, and I invite your listeners right now to think about what's the thing you're really wanting? What's the thing you're craving so badly? And don't think, oh, is this selfish? Is this not? Just like really let yourself be real. And what is it? And many, many people, I don't know what percentage, but maybe 80% of people, it will be two things it comes down to: safety and freedom. Most people want something to allow themselves to feel safe. And then the other thing is free, right? That's my experience. That's what I've seen with my clients and my students in my reading. So then what the practice becomes is, okay, where in my life right now am I free? People suffer so much with the anxiety, with the depression. They'll come to me and they're in such a spiral. And part of the art of manifesting is appreciating what you have. However, when you're so blocked, when your nervous system is so shut down, you can say all the words that you want. I'm so happy and grateful for the food I have on my plate, right? But if you're repeating all these words, but you're not really feeling that feeling, and your nervous system is not in resonance. So regulation is a really popular word. I'm a fan, nervous system regulation. But I feel like that gets cut out of the conversation of manifesting a lot. Because a lot of people will come and they've been manifesting. They've been on the path and they'll write 3 times a day the things they want. Huge practice. I'm a fan. They'll hear, oh, I have to feel this way. So then they try to push the feeling. But they're not really clear, one, what's under the feeling, like what's deeper. It's not just, oh, I want the house so I don't have to pay my mortgage and that, whatever. It's, oh, I want the house because then I will feel safe at the most fundamental level. And then what does safety feel in my life right now? Where in my body do I feel safe? In the room you're listening to this podcast right now, chances are you're very safe because you're relaxed enough to listen to this podcast. So getting in touch with the true feeling that is comparable to what you're trying to manifest is A, and then plus B, is your nervous system vibrating at the same level as that feeling? And that's the key point that I think a lot of people don't get taught or isn't spoken about. And so if it's not, then I would do something that soothes your nervous system, because we can only receive when we're open, when we feel receptive. We can only receive the manifestations and the gifts from the universe. So the more I call it nervous system resonance, like the more we work with thinking about our nervous systems and then doing little things in a moment when we notice, oh, my nervous system is off. So like if you know, feel stressed when you're manifesting, people do, they share with me, they start to be like, oh my God, I want this thing, I want this thing. And they feel their, body. And it's that beautiful book, The Body Keeps Score. So check in with your body. And when you're thinking about what you manifest, notice in your body, are you holding tension anywhere? Think of that area and breathe 3 deep breaths. Maybe stand up and do like a gentle yoga posture. And I'm not saying like for an alignment-based situation, like a big pose. I'm talking about like dishwasher pose, where you're just like swishing your arms side to side, letting your arms be loose. So things that allow you to relax into your body. Go get a massage. And if that's your way and that relaxes you, and as you're having your massage, think about the intention for your manifestation. And the whole time you're relaxing, think, God, I'd love to feel free. Oh, I love the feeling of feeling free. And just like go in your mind on a little trip on all the times in your life you felt really free while you're relaxing your body, because the body is the house of the nervous system, and the nervous system is the technology that allows us to get our intuition online, that allows us to have psychic impressions, that allows us to manifest things in this world, that allows us to register serendipity. So getting clear where our nervous system temperature is, and then regulating our nervous system so that our nervous system becomes the thermostat, not responding to the temperature on the outside.
Yes, exactly. I found that that is so important. And I'm glad you're speaking about that because that was something I wanted to touch on with you, especially from your work and understanding of tantric philosophy and meditation. How can these teachings and these practices support nervous system regulation exactly, as well as this kind of spiritual connection, our intuition, especially for the women navigating burnout and modern stress?
It's a great question, especially as you said, as female identifying individuals who often are such caretakers. To me, meditation is the total sale, whatever you want to think of it, Groupon, 3 for 1, all about that. And I love sales and things like that because it's so efficient. So someone who is stressed, who is burnt out, however you identify on the gender spectrum, like this world is busy. Most everyone is, right? So if you are handling a lot, meditation is so efficient because it calms your nervous system. So literally what's happening biophysically in your body is that your body will start to calm, it will settle. Your nervous system automatically will start to find resonance. That means it will start to regulate, and then it will start to heal simultaneously. You can Google the benefits of meditation. I have an episode, the last one of the last 5 episodes I've dropped on the Modern Mystic podcast, that literally goes through the benefits of meditation. I mean, listen to that and it'll just inspire you, or Google benefits of meditation, because it's good for your cardiovascular health. It's good for your brain health. It's good for everything. There's nothing it's not good for. So meditating, and start literally 1 to 3 minutes a day. I used to be a professor and teach mindfulness and meditation up until recently. I'm taking a sabbatical now. But I'd always say to students, don't start like with these big pie in the sky amounts. literally 1 to 3 minutes a day, because it's the consistency over time. It's like a muscle at the gym. If you build the reps, that's when literally your neurobiology changes. So your brain, after meditating for 30 days, 1 to 3 minutes a day, will look different as scan. For sure, significant difference if you do that for 8 weeks. There's studies that show this. It's incredible. So 1 to 3 minutes, once you find that you can do that, for sure, you can up it to 3 to 5 minutes, do that for another month. You know, you don't want to accelerate that too quickly, because as humans, we love to jump off the bandwagons. So you put a reminder in your phone, 1 to 3 minutes. Eventually, you can go 3 to 5 minutes. And truly, that's what you need in my mind. That is the absolute most efficient and connective medicine and technology to access your intuition and to heal your nervous system and to really, in a sense, manifest everything you want in your life.
Wow. Well, you just gave us the secret sauce. It sounds like where do you start? And everyone can do that. That's what I love about meditation. I think it gets, for whatever reason, a bad rap, but I think it comes with consistency and it's uncomfortable when you haven't started to meditate, if that's not a practice that you are often doing. But I would agree that that is really where it starts. It's the bridge and the space to everything.
One that you like, excuse me, but that's the
Yeah.
other thing I want to say, because I've taught meditation for over 20 years. This is the other thing. Most people have a story, and I've heard myriad of stories that come to me on the side. I hate meditation. I did it. It didn't work. I can't stop my mind. These are the common things. At the end of every podcast episode of my podcast, I actually have the guest or myself lead a short meditation so people can go back and listen to it and play it. And I have people who do that. So there's so many apps and ways to get free meditations, and find one that works for you. Again, like on the podcast I have all these different guests, and I invite them to do that so that there are all these different types of meditation, because it's like dating. You have to have like an eHarmony situation. You have to find the meditation that you like to do, because if you don't like it, you won't do it. This is to be human. So I don't believe, and that's part of the tantric philosophy, that you should suffer through a meditation that you instantly feel repelled about. For sure. I mean, I've done like 3 to 5 day silent retreats, and there is a time in your meditative maturation process, if that is your path and your journey, that you practice. Like when you go to a gym after a long time, you might practice holding like a huge weight that you wouldn't normally hold, that isn't pleasant. But you don't expect to go to the gym and start that way. You don't expect to go to a gym and lift like a 150-pound weight, right? No, you should go do something fun, right? That's how we create habits. Go to one that at least feels neutral. So find a meditation and find one that is like, oh, either neutral, where you don't feel any resistance, or even I would encourage you to find that's enjoyable.
That's a great reminder. Thank you for sharing that. So,
Yeah.
from your perspective, what role does spiritual awakening play in one's journey of life? What can you share about that?
I think that spiritual awakening is a really unique thing to every person. I feel like that's the answer to so many things we're talking about today, but it's true. Some people have huge fireworks, bells and whistles, like aha moments where they can pinpoint and talk about the moment their life turned around, right? And then some of us, and I think more often, most of us, it's slower. And so as humans, we love dramatic things a lot of the times. We like mythopoetic things. We like, oh, the journey, like a movie type situation where it's very dramatic, but it's not that way for everyone at all. And I think that the key point is that awakening, of course, has the word waking up, to wake. What does it mean to wake up? Well, the majority of people wake up slowly. Most people don't jump out of bed, right? This is the truth. So that's the way it is spiritually for most people. And so for most people, it's a very slow beckoning of, oh, I'm a little bit interested in that. Let me follow that breadcrumb. Okay, oh, I got a little interested about that. Let me follow that breadcrumb. Oh, I heard something and it resonated, and there's some kind of spark that I feel lit up about, right? And so the majority of people, the awakening is slowly. And then if they choose to keep following that which excites their spirit, I love the quote by Rumi, run towards every call that excites your spirit. If they start to pay attention, because you have to pay attention, and notice spiritually on a soul level, what excites you a little bit? that you've heard, that you've learned. And if you literally just Google that, follow that, do that practice, listen to that podcast episode, and just follow those crumbs, you'll awaken. It's like your life will be what you put your attention to. Your life is what you've put your attention to. The end of our lives, this lifetime, we'll look back and say, okay, our life, what will we see? It's everything we put our attention to. So I think that to become spiritually awake, you don't have to go to the Himalayas and pay $1 million for ayahuasca ceremony or do all these things. Sure, they're great things if you feel moved to do that, if that's part of your breadcrumb trail. But simply, and for most people, it's literally just follow the next breadcrumb and follow the next breadcrumb. And you wake up slowly and you'll find over time that accumulates. And all of a sudden, you'll be in a very different state if you commit to that awakening, if you commit to following that excitement than you were a few years prior.
Yes, that's so important. Thank you for sharing about that. And you're right. It's following and trusting your unique breadcrumb. And whenever that awakening or however that journey looks is going to be unique to each, and yet trust the process and let it unfold.
And no, it's not always like a romantic, high level, passionate thing. Like if you're in a committed relationship with anyone, and I mean like whether it's your mother, whether it's your dog, like whoever it is, we understand that it's not all highs. And I think a lot of times people fall off or don't continue on the path of awakening because they want it to be huge highs. And sometimes people have that amazing, like super high, firework experience, which is such a gift. And they'll recall to me, they'll tell me in a reading, like, oh, I went here and I had this vision, or this happened to me. And it's like amazing. And then often they'll share with me, but then, like, after a period of time, like everything else paled compared to that. So they didn't really keep with it and they fell off, so to speak, their spiritual pursuit. And so just know it's okay if that happened to you, it's okay. And if your spiritual experiences are more subtle, that's okay too. It's every relationship that is of value, it has ups and downs, and the passion wanes and the passion waxes. And the key is just keep moving towards it, knowing it's important to you, knowing it's a relationship you value, and inevitably the passion will come back. Inevitably you'll have some cool experiences. Inevitably you'll start to, have the serendipities and the magic, and you'll be like, oh, right, yes, this is an amazing path. And you'll get back into that dynamic with the universe.
Yes, yes. Enjoy the roller coaster. That's kind of where I've had to get like the ups, the downs, the twists and turns. It's all purposeful, right? And if you can find that lens and settle into the hardest of hards and then the brightest of brights and everything in between, I think it's the everything in between where it all comes together, where you integrate and you find yourself through it. But stick with it. Yes, it's not all chasing that nirvana, right? You can experience it, you can touch it, but then you're here. And what do you do when you're here?
Yeah, well, and it's so beautiful what you said because it's really in my paths. I have a tantric yoga path, as I mentioned, and then I'm a Celtic priestess in the Celtic tradition. And in both traditions, there's this understanding that really the goal of life isn't what you're saying exactly. It's not the highs and the lows, though, of course, that's part of it, but it's not the goal. It's part of the journey, but not the goal. But the goal is really peace. The goal is really in yoga, it's called ananda, and it literally means deep peace, deep contentment, deep bliss, like bliss from feeling so content, like those few moments in your life when you look around, and it's more rare, at least it had been for me, right? Where you look around and you kind of exhale and you go, God, I wouldn't change anything, right? And you're just like so filled with contentment, those precious moments, right? That's what the tradition says is truly the goal of spirituality, is to seek, align, and find that kind of contentment.
Exactly. Yes. And that's a beautiful reminder of if that's the goal, we can assess what will bring contentment to us and help us get there. But also, even can you not even do that, right? Like, I think as humans, we want to all of a sudden just take action and take steps, but maybe we're missing the point. I think the point is almost how can you be? How can you witness? How can you, that peace that you're speaking of? And really, that's always available at any time. It's not always something we have to force upon or make the right circumstances to get to that place. It's how do you find that in each space we're in?
Exactly, that modern mysticism, right? The practice of presence. because
Yes.
when we're present and when we're not fighting life, then we can find contentment, even if we're in the hospital, even if we're suffering, even if our bodies are hurting. If we practice feeling the aliveness in every moment. And that's what meditation helps us do. And there are different tools. Ritual is another huge portal that I'm a big fan of, that I teach a lot of people. How do we create ritual in our life, which makes things more meaningful and allows us to be actually present for the moments in our life? And when we're present, then whatever's happening, like you said, which was lovely, that's the goal. It's just being present. When we're filled with presence, that's the contentment. We're not trying to change anything. We're not resisting anything. We're opening and we're living wider.
Yes, I can feel it. And so I'd love maybe to have you get into that. One, I am just so curious, what is a Celtic priestess? If we can talk a little bit about this and those rituals of what does that look like? How do we step into our lives? And what is this like? And how does this support us?
So to me, it's so much about the elements. I come from this Celtic background, and the first time I went to Ireland, it was just incredible how the usage of the elements is integrated to make life more meaningful, to make life more magical. And as you've alluded to yourself, I've always loved nature, always felt how nature literally lifts my vibration. And now, having done so much psychic work, I see that. I feel that. Like, you just go to nature and your vibration just gets expanded. It's just like the easiest, fastest way, one of them, to literally just up level how you're feeling energetically, because nature, like pets who we love, they just vibrate at a very high frequency. And so osmotically, we start to vibrate closer to their frequency or at their frequency. And that's why I love nature. And that's why nature is such a great tool. And with the Celtic priestess tradition, there's such a use of incorporating nature into one's life and ritual. So I had alluded to and spoken a little bit about ritual, but ritual is different than habits, right? They're habits that we do. So we brush our teeth, hopefully, most of us every day, twice a day, right? That's a habit, right? It's something we've committed to, it's something we know is good for us. When we're doing that habit, however, are we bringing meaning to it? Are we thinking, oh, what a blessing. I have teeth that breaks down my food so I can get the right. We're not thinking those things, most of us. We could, and actually, let's start. That's a beautiful practice. But for most of us, that's just a habit. We know the habits we do. So they're good for us, we know, but they're habits. Ritual is different. Ritual is something that we've consciously mapped out. It could be a habit, but we bring a certain level of mindfulness, of awareness, of intention to it with our minds and with our hearts. So we could do, again, the same thing with brushing the teeth and make it actually a ritual and think, oh, I'm bathing my teeth. And there's a beautiful ritual in the tantric tradition where it's called abhishek. I was there at one this weekend where they're literally washing a statue, and there's a practice where you can take a bath or a shower in a sacred site, and they do this in the Celtic tradition too. It's called something different, and it's different, but the point is that you wash yourself in a way where you're really honoring your body as a temple for the divine. So that's another example. So you can go in your shower, in your bath, and that when you're doing your habit, start to think, wow, this body is actually this incredible conduit. This body is actually this amazingly hard working for me all the time entity that houses my spirit and allows my heart to feel all its feelings and allows me to, and fill in the blank. So that's a simple thing. I like to, when I'm in the shower, a Celtic ritual to work with energy is you can picture the water like silver light coming through the water, like as if the liquid were silver itself, bathing over your body to help neutralize any negative energy. So that's a concrete example of doing something and allowing your mind to visualize something else, and that will shift the energy. So inviting the elementals into your life is a very Celtic thing. So the elementals are ether, earth, water, fire, air in my tradition. And so incorporating some kind of ritual in your day with whichever elemental speaks to you. So I work with the moon cycles. That's another Celtic example, a concrete thing. So on a new moon is new or dark moon, it's called. You pay attention to what's happening with the moon because when we align with nature, nature has such a high vibration and has so much wisdom. We're thinking about nature and its cycles, we automatically raise our vibration and our life gets into rhythm. Our life gets a reset. Our scattered energy and our scattered schedules, and there's so many centrifugal forces pulling us all directions, right? Nature has these rhythms, the moon, the ocean lapping in and out, right? So when we sync up with the rhythm of nature, then we feel less pulled out and our nervous systems are more regulated. So the new dark moon is a time to set an intention, traditionally in the Celtic tradition. So you can think of an intention that you want to try to birth or recultivate or practice or an energy for a moon cycle, which is about 29 and a half-ish days. And so you think, okay, the new dark moon, I'm going to make this intention. So say the intention was, I don't know, ease. I want more ease in my life. Everything feels so hard. I want more ease. Okay. So it could be that you write the word ease on a piece of paper. You could tear it up and place it into the earth and offer it to the earth. And you could sing a song. It could be a song from childhood. It could be a song from, if you have a religious or spiritual tradition. It could be anything that has meaning. It could be a song that makes you feel easeful. You could sing a song into the paper. You could just sing a song once you plant into the earth, whatever, but you put it in the earth, okay? Or you could allow that piece of paper and drop it in a jar of water and put it outside in the new dark moonlight for that night. You could take it outside and offer it to a fire on a new moon to set an intention. So that's an example of the ways that you can work with the elementals and incorporate a ritual and do something that's really, I think of it as psycho-spiritual. So you're enacting in your life, it's almost like a dramatization. It is what you're trying to embody, and that makes an imprint on our psyche and it crystallizes it, what we want. So it's in our subconscious now, it's in our unconscious. And then as the month goes on, we've set a psychological pattern of something we're trying to create. We've set an energetic pattern psychically. Yeah, that's one way. There's so many ways you can work with rituals and so many ways you can work with the elements, but that's a very simplistic one to offer.
Those are really helpful practices and ones that I think we don't always hear of. How do you actually offer to the earth? How do you use water or some of those elements and can bring them in? So I think that that allows us to start to understand, one, take a look around. We aren't just here and these elements aren't just separate. They're here with us and we can utilize them to help us in our day to day. And you've mentored so many through spiritual transformation. I'm curious if there's any patterns or energetic shifts or aspects that are coming into the collective right now, especially among us women or those who identify as women. And yeah, I'm curious what you're feeling.
Well, it's interesting you brought up, women, woman, because I do think that there is such an amazing and exciting, and it's been very slow roll, but it's been for quite some time now in the Western world. You and I are located in North America and the United States. So it is a very slow roll globally, but towards cultivating the divine feminine for sure, and divine feminine power and energy and wisdom and honoring that has been squelched for so long. And so that for sure, and we've seen that in the younger generation about exploring gender. When I was a young person, I was brought up in this tantric yoga tradition that talked about, oh, you have divine masculine, divine feminine within yourself, and that was just like a given. So to me, that was instilled in me from a very young age. I got that, oh, you have, this goddess and this god within you, right? And so there was a sense of that. As I started to become an adult, I started to realize not everybody had a sense of that, developing the healthy masculine within, the healthy feminine within, and then thinking about that in your own relationship to whomever you're interacting with. And so I think that's very much online right now. I think for sure this theme of waking up and realizing that life is really, really short and it seems long. And for some of us, it's longer. But people starting to very slowly but steadily more recently, like I get this download a lot in my psychic readings, letting go of the emphasis on the materialism. And I think that's very new. There's like a shift of like people really getting it, that life is short, people really changing jobs because they're not so happy with their jobs, people changing partners because they're not so happy with their partners. So there's some kind of like the last few years, I get a lot in readings and downloads, a quickening of the energy for sure. Astrologically speaking, this year, we're in 2025 right now. People will listen to this episode, I know, in many years to come. But right now, so many planets have changed signs. I'm an astrologer by trade and nature too, to air and fire. And so that supports this kind of global energy that I pick up on a lot right now, that there's just like this quickening to let go of things, this quickening to change things, this quickening to seize life. Because if you think about it, the elements of earth and water, they both move down. You know, you throw a pile of soil, it goes down. Water, even if it's at the top of the mountain, the spring, the energy of water always goes down. Fire, you light a birthday candle and it burns you if you're not careful, right? It always goes up. Air always goes up because it's quicker, right? The molecules are more spread apart. So there's a collective quickening that I see. And so to me, it becomes exciting. And then it becomes, okay, how can I ground myself even more? How can I actually get more grounded to hold this quickening that I feel and the changeability of the collective pulse, so to speak. So I think it's an interesting time. I mean, we know it's an interesting time, but yeah, I would say ground. That's what I think it's like all about, grounding for me.
I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing. And from that perspective, both astrologically, but also from your readings of what you're really seeing. And you gave some helpful tools to ground. How do we settle into this space? What would you say about how do we balance that divine masculine and the divine feminine, knowing that we are very much more shifting to try to pull back towards divine feminine? We've been operating in a very masculine heavy society. We still need that, but now we're really introducing this feminine. Do you have any recommendations or thoughts on just how can we hold this container in a more balanced way?
I love that question. And it really speaks to the name of your beautiful podcast, which is like, oh, your intuition. It's
Mm.
the intuition, because the intuition is the widening, the feminine. To me, feminine is the widening. You know, we talk about deepening a lot. To me, that's beautiful. That's healthy masculine, up and down, vertical, right? Deepening, up and down. So, how do we not lose that, as you alluded to, right? How do we stay grounded? I'm talking about that too. Stay centered, stay grounded. That's the masculine. And yet, go wider, broaden our energy, broaden our perspective. And so much of that is encapsulated in learning to hear your inner GPS, learning to pause, learning to not rush, even when we have to move quickly, right? So there's an energy of receptivity that if we practice cultivating, and it's antithetical to the society we're living in. So this is the trick. It's harder than ever in a certain kind of way because the speed at which everything is going. But to really fully integrate the idea of this nervous system resonance, that if I actually relax a little bit, if I allow myself to quiet a little bit, to even for 2 minutes, not do anything. I mean, if you had told me that in like my, I don't know, late 20s, but if you had like said to me, like, oh, like the value, my current self, the value in not meditating, because that's still doing something, but actually zoning out. My young, productive, hyper successful self would have been like, what? Like, you know, I understood the benefit of meditation and deep, quiet practices, ritual, all that. But really learning, like, oh, if I for 2 minutes actually let myself daydream, if for 2 minutes I'm sitting on a bus and I actually just allow myself to practice this art of presence, not trying, but just like you and I talked about, looking around, being receptive to what is in life, looking at the tree outside I'm looking at right now, noticing that there are 3 circles in my office right now where I'm recording this in my podcast booth. Circle, huh? Really getting curious, because so much about the divine feminine and that widening capacity, the way we access it is to be curious. So curiosity is a practice that can lead to the divine feminine, because in curiosity, we don't act like we know. We're receptive, we live wide open, and in the openness, that's when the divine feminine can rush in. The feminine is about the vacuum. When we're open, when there's a vacuum, that's when our manifestations can come in. When we're open, when we're a vacuum, that's when the messages of the universe and our ancestors' voices and our angel voices and everything can come in.
Absolutely. That was really helpful and powerful to listen and to remind us. And I'm going to wing us here and ask if you would be willing maybe to end us on a meditation, just a short one. It sounds like this is a practice that you do on your own podcast. And I feel like we just have come back to meditation again and again. Would you be willing to just offer us a short one to ground us all in and just show our listeners what this can be like?
Absolutely. I love it. Meditation is medicine. So if it's safe to do so, and you're not driving or operating some machinery, you can pause that and save this for later. But if it's safe and comfortable to do so, you can close your eyes. And if it doesn't feel safe, you can keep them open with a diffuse gaze, like the lid's halfway, and simply stare at a point in front of you. And then take 3 of the deepest breaths you've taken the entire day. So even if it's morning, whenever you're listening to this, 3 conscious breaths. And feel yourself arriving into your body. Because as modern mystics, the body is not something that we think is less than. The body is the gateway. The body is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the mystical and the mundane. So feel into your body. You can scan from your feet now, feel your feet in the earth or whatever is touching the earth. And then breathe into your body and scan whatever sensations you feel in the body till you reach the crown of the head. And then on your next exhalation, you can allow your awareness to scan back down into your hips, into your leg, into your feet, and into your seat. And then you can bring your attention visualizing or sensing, because some of us don't visualize as clearly. So just sense and or visualize a golden column, a golden light that is stretching from your hips downward through the floor and the foundation of the building you're in. And if you're outside, golden column stretching down into the earth. Wherever you are, sense that column now, shooting clearly its golden rays downward into the grass, into the solid earth, into the miles and miles of bedrock that make up the earth, this giant rock that you are upon. And that golden column might start to feel like it's a little forward of you or to the side of you. So notice that if it's the case. And in your mind's eye, because energy goes where attention flows, direct it straight downward. Feel it stretching down now, past the bedrock, into the cavernous earth where there's opening. There's water, tables, there's little openings of rock, until it reaches the molten lava at the center of the earth. And then that iron ball that is the center, and wrap in your mind's eye the golden column of light, like a ball of yarn all around that center of the earth. And take a breath and feel yourself anchored, grounded, and connected. Feel your lower body heavy, your whole body perhaps weighty, tethered. And then in your mind's eye, you can traverse the column of light back up through the caverns, through the miles and miles of bedrock, up through the grass into the foundation of your house or your park, wherever you are. Now wrap it around your hips like a ball of yarn. So just in your mind's eye, it's not complicated. Just say, okay, I now wrap it like a ball of yarn around my hips. Feel yourself tether. Feel the solidity, the security. And you can repeat to yourself 3 times, aloud or silently. I am safe. I am grounded. I am protected. I am safe. I am grounded and I'm protected. I'm safe. I'm grounded and I am protected. And then you can wiggle your toes a little bit. Feel the weight of your body one more time as you take a deep exhale. And feel more into the low body. And then very slowly you can open and close the eyes a few times. Exiting the meditation slowly is important for the nervous system. So do that a few times, the eyelids.
Thank you so much for that beautiful grounding practice and for getting us our 3-minute meditation in today. That felt so good and I needed that. So thank you so much for being willing to do that.
You're welcome so much. And people can listen to this episode. Like with my podcast, they can listen to this episode and you could do that every day. Rewind it every day for, 33 minutes. That probably was, right? It makes all
Yes.
the difference.
It does. I feel so much more settled into myself. Even though I meditated beforehand, there's something about, I think, also communion when you meditate together or with one another. And for those listeners who just experience that with us, I hope you can kind of feel that energy we created in that portal of really love and support that you just set the container for, Kilkenny. So before I let you go, I like to ask my guests 2 intuitive heart questions to close this out. And the first one being, how has embracing intuition changed the trajectory of your life the most?
Well, I have an intuition toolkit. Folks who listening can go to my website, modernmystic.love/intuition. And I give some really concrete exercises of how you can build your intuition very easily. So there are 3 on my toolkit. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because so many people ask me about intuition. So many people I teach intuition in my readings. And, it's just like, okay, I have to have a tool to give people. So in that toolkit, I've given things that have more recently helped me because this is the thing. It's fascinating. It's endless. Like to answer that question, I have to talk to you for 5 more hours. Like it's changed my life and it just makes my life an adventure and exciting. Like I don't know how people and I honor everyone who hasn't had this understanding and knowledge. And I'm so grateful to be here to share it. And I don't know how people just don't do this all the time because it's the secret sauce to make life more interesting and magical and happy, frankly. So lately, I've been really into the clairs. And this helps my readings, but it just helps everyone I share these with. And this is, again, my toolkit, modernmystic.love/intuition. And focusing on clairsentience, clairaudience, clairtangents, right? These are the clairs. I don't know if you're familiar with them or the audience may or may not be, but there's very specific ways that you can use your senses to allow your psychic abilities and your intuition to turn online. So, some of the stuff we talk about can feel very out there, but there's very concrete things that you can be taught. And as a tantric yoga, that's a modern mystic, right? That's the senses, my body, my life, my kids, my partner, my job. It doesn't have to take me away from mysticism, but those are gateways and portals if I move towards them into finding mysticism. And so your senses are the same way. So lately I've been really into thinking about my clairs and practicing. It might be like for a week, I'm really working on my clairaudience, which is getting downloads of my intuition. And for me, it's for my guides because I have this is my work and this is what I do for a living in my readings. So I'll work on my ears and sound and really focusing on like how many messages I get through songs, how many messages I get through words, how many messages I get through an auditory capacity. So focusing on like if I'm walking down the street and pay attention, listener, because if you're interested in this, walk down the street you want to connect. So you want to just align your vibration. So whatever that means for you, it might be just doing that quick exercise we just did. Okay, I'm walking down the street and I'm going to turn to my breath. I'm going to breathe 3 times. Great. Your elevation now of your vibration is raised, which means you can receive clear messages better. Okay, my intuitive Wi-Fi is on. Okay, I'm going to picture that column from my hips down into the earth. Okay, I wrap it around the earth. Great. I'm grounded. So I'm grounded. I'm not going to float away. I'm not like out there having delusions, right? I'm connected. I'm grounded. I'm safe. So important. Nervous system. It goes back to that manifesting conversation. So many people, I have people come to my readings and they can't control their psychic impressions, have readings with psychics who things feel out of control because they haven't learned to ground first. They have to learn to regulate their nervous system. Okay. Then when you're walking down the street, this is okay, guides. Okay, angels. I'm going to pay attention to everything I hear the next 3 minutes. And you walk down the street and you'll be amazed at all the clairaudience things that come through. So you can work with every sense in that way. That's a little trailer. It's how you do one. But that's what I've been playing and working with lately, and I love it.
I love it too. Thank you for sharing about that. And I will definitely link what you shared in our show notes so people can access that easily. But I definitely agree with you. I have a practice of, for some reason, like half the cars in my neighborhood have ask. And that's become my little reminder of when I go on my walk, I'll see a license plate that says ask, and I'll go, oh, yes, let me settle in. I can connect and say, this is the space of what would you like to share? And then I listen for the next couple minutes and just see what comes through. So I think there's so many ways you can do it, but find your way that works for you. Find the
Yeah.
little thing that reminds you. I like that you're using clairs to really instigate and investigate. Okay, how do I use this sense? In what ways do these come through? And just exploring. So, okay, we could go so deep in that, but we will leave that one there. Okay, second is what's one way you return to yourself when you feel disconnected, which I feel like this whole episode you've really given us a lot. But just personally for you, what's your practice that you go to?
What I just shared lately, it's morphs over time, but right now, feel into your feet in your own body. Like I mentioned, astrologer, I have 5 planets in Libra. Like, so for friends who don't know anything about astrology, that won't mean anything, but people, there are a lot of your friends who will. That's so much about the other. So if you have a lot of Libra in your chart, or if you're a mother, or fill in the blank, if you're a caretaker of people, wonderful, beautiful men who come to me and take care of all the people, right? So if you're someone who is just does a lot of output, your body and your energy get so mingled and so drained by others. And so the simple act of, if you need to go into a bathroom at your office and just close the door, and you don't really have to go to the bathroom, but you just breathe or take a walk around the block when you think you can't have a break from your Zoom calls. Trust me, do it. 30 seconds. Before this podcast, I went outside. It didn't seem like I had time. It was raining a little bit, but I just went outside and literally 30 seconds, I put my face up into the rain and I went, and again, the elements, it was the water element. I just went, water, I love you. And it just connected me to prepare for this interview. So there's the global consciousness. We're so used to our own consciousness and our own mind and what we're giving to others. And I call that local consciousness, right? That's our local consciousness. But at any point in time, there's a global consciousness available to us. When I went out to the rain and I used the elemental of water, right, I connected to something greater than myself. That's another way to say it. That's being a modern mystic. Remembering. And when we're giving all the time, and we're outputting all the time, simply the radical act of separating your energy, which means go by yourself, connect with nature, and or feel into your own legs, feet, and seat. Feel into your own body. Just when I feel into my body, I'm like, oh my God, right, Kilkenny. And I'm constantly doing readings and talking to people's guides, right? So I need to do that in spades. That's grounding. And then feel your core, picture your column and connect it to the earth, right? So get grounded, separate yourself, 30 seconds, breathe 3 deep breaths, feel into your own body, your own legs and feet, particularly your low body, because that's a real nervous system regulator quickly. And then maybe icing on the metaphorical cake, picture your golden column.
I love it. That was a great round out, great reminder and a way to end this. So thank you so much, Kilkenny, for this delightful and insightful episode, truly. This is going to help so many of us really understand and have understood at this point really what modern mysticism is and how we can create a life of magic and connection and grounding and find that contentment because that is the secret sauce. So before I let you go, will you please share with my audience about your work and how they can find you?
Absolutely. Well, for sure, really check out my intuition toolkit because people love that. I get emails all the time, DMs all the time, thanking me, asking me questions about it. If you write me after that on my web, if you have a question, feel free to reach out. But that's modernmystic.love/intuition. And it's just such a powerful tool. Again, I give 3 very specific, clear exercises to do that really people share with me, really impacts their life greatly. And then my podcast, Modern Mystic Podcast. Yeah, it's in the top 2%. I've got 86 episodes. I have thought leaders from around the world, and we talk about all the things: spirituality, science, psychology, how they all come together, and very concrete. I'm a big fan of actually how to make your spirituality an actuality. So that is the whole point and impetus of that podcast: how to make your spirituality an actuality in your everyday life.
So beautiful. Thank you for all the work you are doing and how you are showing up in your life. It is such a pleasure to have connected with you today. And just thank you again for coming on and sharing all your wisdom.
You are most welcome. Thank you for your insightful questions and for this platform. It's been a lovely conversation, very profound.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on Intuition Unlocked. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a moment of insight, guidance, or intuitive inspiration. To dive deeper into our community and get access to exclusive content, head to my website at www.olivia-ashley.com and subscribe to my newsletter. You can also connect with me on Instagram at wildlyolivia for daily inspiration and updates. Remember, your intuition is your superpower. Trust it, nurture it, and let it guide you. Until next time, I'm Olivia Ashley, and I can't wait to connect with you again. Thank you for joining me